Picture this: a childhood spent on military bases, surrounded by discipline and order. Now imagine that same child growing up to become one of the most horrific serial killers history has ever seen. This isn't a Hollywood plot twist. It's the chilling reality of Dennis Nilsen, who turned his training on the innocent. Buckle up, because this story is about to get dark. In 1978, 33-year-old Dennis Nilsen met a young man at a London pub. He invited the stranger back to his apartment at 195 Melrose Avenue. The two continued drinking into the night. As they crawled into bed, Nilsen realized this fleeting encounter would soon end. When Nilsen awoke at dawn, he impulsively decided to prolong the interaction. As his bedmate slept, Nilsen's heart raced. Spying his tie on the floor, he grabbed it and wrapped it around the young man's neck. Nilsen quickly straddled him, pulling the tie tighter. The two struggled from the bed to the floor. The young man scraped along the carpet, trying to break free of Nilsen's chokehold, but his strength was no match. As they hit the wall, the fight left his body. Nilsen filled a bucket and drowned the unconscious man. He watched impassively as the last bubbles rose to the surface. Shaking from adrenaline, Nilsen could not even recall the name of the man he had just ruthlessly murdered. After murdering the young man, Nilsen made a coffee and smoked cigarettes, contemplating his next move. His dog, Bleep, sniffed. The corpse slumped in the chair. Nilsen shooed him away and removed the tie from the victim's bruised neck. Nilsen carried the limp body to the bathroom and gently washed his hair. He struggled to dry the man off before returning him to the bed, now a gruesome companion who would never leave. Nilsen was entranced by the corpse's beauty. He didn't know why he killed. He just didn't want to spend New Year's alone. Later, Nilsen bought tools to dismember the body but couldn't go through with it. Instead, he dressed the corpse in new underwear. After bathing, Nilsen attempted intercourse but lost arousal. The body was discarded to the floor and hidden behind a curtain. This was the beginning of Nilsen's macabre double life, one of death and dark possession. After the murder, Nilsen slept next to the corpse on the floor. He later made dinner and watched TV. The body mere feet away, Nilsen tried hiding his victim under the floorboards, but rigor mortis had set in. Finally, he buried the body beneath the floor. A week later, curiosity got the best of Nilsen. He washed the soiled corpse in the tub, then bathed in the same water. The body was trussed up by the ankles, then stashed under the floor again. Months later, Nilsen burned the remains in a bonfire, masking the smell with rubber. He was shocked that he got away with murder and believed this evil act could never happen again. But it did. 12 more times. In 1979, student Andrew Ho alleged Nilsen strangled him during an attempted bondage session. Ho reported it, but no charges stuck. By 1981, Nilsen had murdered 12 men in that flat. Most were vulnerable, homeless, addicted, male sex workers. Some he let go, snapping from his killing trap. Nilsen's second victim was tourist Kenneth Ockenden. As they drank in the pub, Nilsen dreaded his impending departure. Back in the flat, friendship turned to frenzied murder. After strangling Ockenden, Nilsen carelessly listened to music as the corpse lay nearby. He cleaned and dressed the body, taking twisted photos posing it around the flat. Nilsen spoke to the corpse as if it could hear, then violated it. For months, he'd take out Ockenden's body to watch TV together. In May 1980, homeless 16-year-old Martin Duffy was strangled after accepting Nilsen's offer to stay the night. Nilsen brought the boy's limp body into the tub, praising his youthful looks. Duffy was kept in the cupboard for 2 weeks before being hidden below the floor. More victims followed, like 27-year-old prostitute Billy Sutherland, who Nilsen barely recalled killing. Malcolm Barlow was a mentally troubled orphan who waited outside Nilsen's flat after being released from the hospital. Though finding him a nuisance, Nilsen invited Barlow in and later strangled him too. Nilsen kept corpses for days, violating them in bed. Nilsen believed he appreciated them more intensely than ever before. To eliminate flies, Nilsen constantly sprayed his flat where rotting corpses lay. When a neighbor complained of the stench, he blamed the decaying building. Contemplating suicide, Nilsen was spared by his eager dog. Instead, he spat at his reflection in disgust. Nilsen cut up the bodies on his kitchen floor. He boiled off flesh and organized the dismembered parts beneath the floorboards. Soon, 2 whole corpses and pieces of a third lay rotting within the cramped flat. He disposed of remains in his garden, down a hole outside, and between fence flats. Severed torsos went into suitcases, then were burned just feet from the garden fence. Shockingly, detectives investigating vandalism stood above two corpses completely unaware. Nilsen warned away neighborhood children as he stoked bonfires fueled by human remains. He crushed skulls and raked the ashes of 6 victims into the earth. More would burn in a third inferno before Nilsen moved. In his new attic flat, Nilsen was sure the space would deter his compulsion. But 3 more murders followed. Disposal was now complicated. His first victim was John Howlett, met at a pub and invited home. Though trying to make John leave, Nilsen ended up strangling him with an upholstery strap after a struggle. Nilsen stuffed Howlett's corpse in the closet, pondering disposal. His next victim, Archibald Allen, choked on an omelette Nilsen had cooked. Though unsure if he was responsible, Nilsen presumed he had killed Allen and left his body in the tub for 3 days before cutting him up too. The third victim was 20-year-old addict Stephen Sinclair, met near Leicester Square. At home, Nilsen listened to music as Sinclair shut up and dozed off. Nilsen found the ligature, thinking, "Here we go again." Nilsen tenderly bathed Sinclair's scarred body and placed him naked in bed, feeling a sense of oneness. Nilsen links his crimes to childhood trauma. When he was 6, his mother exposed him to his beloved grandfather's corpse, triggering devastating loss. Nilsen links his twisted crimes to childhood trauma. Seeing his beloved grandfather's corpse at 6 caused emotional death. Merely drowning, he awoke violated by a boy on the beach. Withdrawing after his mother remarried, Nilsen relied on alcohol for loneliness. In 1961, he enlisted in the army and became a cook, which is how he learned butchery. In the army, he practiced on an unconscious body for arousal. During the last few months of service, he met a man whom Brian Masters in the definitive book on Nilsen called Terry Finch, and they developed a close relationship. After failed careers, casual relationships left Nilsen longing for commitment. His mirror fantasies grew bizarrer, making up a dead body, imagining its burial. Nilsen worried about his obsession with his own corpse. At Melrose Place, Nilsen ordered out his flatmate David. Dreading eternal loneliness, he descended into political rants, drink, and TV. Murder soon followed. Nilsen boiled and bagged Sinclair's remains as before. Parts flushed down the toilet, some perhaps dumped outside because a man found a bag ripped apart near his garden, some distance away from Nilsen's, which contained what looked like a rib cage and a spinal column. His Cranley Gardens housemates knew little of the quiet tenant. When their toilet blocked, Nilsen denied issues, fearful as Sinclair's remains clogged the drains. With specialists called, Nilsen stashed the rest of the body in plastic bags. The technician found flesh in the sewer, traced to Nilsen's pipe. Though Nilsen tried removing the evidence at night, suspicious housemates reported him. Nilsen sensed his impending arrest. In the dark hallway, inspectors waylaid him about the drains. At the station, Nilsen unloaded the gruesome details, having longed to confess. The extensive remains, as in bags of rotting men uncovered, revealed Nilsen's lies about victim numbers. At the old flat, possibly a dozen more. 7 others had escaped Nilsen's attempts. Nilsen compared his detached cleanup to ordinary washing up after a feast, as if the victims were merely dirty platters. Despite cautioning, Nilsen eagerly confessed over 30 hours of questioning. He calmly detailed his murderous techniques, helping police identify remains. Nilsen's direction enabled officers to reassemble victim Stephen Sinclair. With confirmed ID, charges stuck as investigations continued. Nilsen returned to Melrose Avenue to indicate burial spots. Though claiming professional calmness, privately he was disturbed. Some victims narrowly escaped Nilsen's attacks, even reporting them, but limited follow-up enabled Nilsen's ongoing spree. In 1979, Andrew Ho complained of an attack but wouldn't testify. Douglas Stewart also reported being strangled but was dismissed as drunk. At Cranley Gardens, Nilsen killed 3 in just 18 months. On his 36th birthday, he lured student Paul Knobs home. After drinking, they went to bed. After a night with Nilsen, student Paul Knobs awoke badly injured. Seeing Knobs' bruising, Nilsen advised a doctor, but Knobs declined to report the attack. Nilsen's next victim, Carl Stotter, nearly drowned after Nilsen strangled, then submerged him in the tub. Nilsen claimed a zipper caused Stotter's injuries. Stotter met Nilsen again, but never went to police. Awaiting trial, Nilsen fired his lawyer Ronald Moss, then reheard and fired again. Seeing crime scene photos, Nilsen felt ill over his atrocities. He sketched victims, questioning if their families could ever forgive him. Nilsen faced 6 murder and 2 attempted murder charges. The prosecution cited his detailed confession as evidence of awareness. The defense argued diminished mental responsibility. So Nilsen's October 1993 trial began. He pleaded not guilty to 6 murder charges. The prosecution outlined his arrest but didn't show the jury graphic remains. 2 additional charges came too late. Nilsen tried discrediting the witnesses against him, Paul Nobbs, Douglas Stewart, and Carl Stotter. He exploited inconsistencies in their statements. Nobbs admitted to sex with Nilsen that evening and his friendly manner. Lieutenant Stotter also found Nilsen solicitors, but his account still damaged Nilsen's defense. Nilsen's lengthy police interviews were read for 4 hours. Evidence included the cooking pot, cutting board, and 1 victim's knives. The defense witness, Dr. James McKeith, said Nilsen suffered from an unspecified personality disorder. McKeith described Nilsen's extraordinary ability to separate mental and behavioral functions, implying diminished responsibility. He also noted Nilsen's association of unconscious bodies with arousal. On cross-examination, McKeith retracted his judgment on diminished responsibility. That was for the court. Psychiatrist Dr. Patrick Galway diagnosed Nilsen with borderline false self syndrome, causing occasional schizoid outbreaks when isolated. Essentially, Nilsen was not guilty of premeditated malice. The judge questioned Galway's confusing medical terms, losing the jury. Rebuttal psychiatrist Dr. Paul Bowden found Nilsen manipulative with mental abnormality, not disorder. In summing up, the judge said a mind can be evil without abnormality. Dismissing the psychiatry, the jury retired and returned guilty verdicts on all counts, except 2 dissenters on Nobbs' attempted murder. Nilsen received multiple life sentences with no parole for 25 years. Nilsen influenced fiction, like Poppy Bright's novel Exquisite Corpse, with 2 serial killers inspired by him and Jeffrey Dahmer. It graphically depicts dismemberment and decomposition like Nilsen described. Her fictional killer is 33, murdering 23 like Nilsen from 1977-1988. Victims were transients manipulated. Like Nilsen, he kept corpses to avoid loneliness. British authorities blocked Nilsen's 4,000-page memoir, but he got press by writing about his first 1978 victim, 14-year-old Stephen Dean Holmes, met in a pub. Though Nilsen said he was the first of 12 victims, police estimate at least 15 total. 7 are unidentified, including Stephen. Nilsen wasn't charged with Stephen's murder, unable to recall him, yet the police had not given up. In 1990, Nilsen couldn't confirm a blurry photo of Stephen, but in 2006, a better one from Stephen's family enabled the ID. He stashed the corpse under floorboards, periodically checking it for 8 months before burning the remains. Nilsen's original 25 years to life sentence became whole life in prison until 1994, ensuring he'd never be released. At Full Sutton Prison, Nilsen translated books into Braille and pursued hobbies, exchanging abundant letters. He remained there until his death in 2018. So there you have it, the grim saga of Dennis Nilsen, the kindly killer. A man who walked among us, seemingly ordinary, yet harbored a darkness so profound it would leave a trail of shattered lives and unspeakable horrors in its wake. Thanks for joining us on Secret Sleuths. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime deep dives.